Democratic incumbent Andy Beshear is looking to serve the Commonwealth for another 4 years, while Attorney General Daniel Cameron is hoping to flip the seat back to Republican, the party that also leads the Kentucky General Assembly. Tonight, we'll be asking a series of questions that impact Kentuckians in all of our regions here in the Commonwealth. Each candidate will have a minute to answer each question, and will provide time for a rebuttal if needed. And I may press for some clarity as well. At the end, candidates will have closing statements, and we have drawn for the order both of who answers first and for the order of the closing statements. Let's jump right into the issues, gentlemen. Our viewers have told us that they care most about the economy. The two candidates have starkly different views on that. Governor Beshear has touted major jobs announcements during his tenure, low unemployment, and said the Kentucky economy is on fire repeatedly. Attorney General Cameron has described a struggle for many in Kentucky and notes that fewer Kentuckians are working now than were 4 years ago. If that's where we are, how do we move forward? General Cameron.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, and thank you, Bill, and all those that are watching. Look, the governor tonight will tell you again that he believes that this is an economy on fire, but chances are you don't feel that way. This is, for many folks, an economy that's on life support. We have 22,000 fewer Kentuckians working since this governor took office. The median household income has dropped by 12%, making the last 3 years the largest decline in median household income that we've seen in this Commonwealth's history. Inflation is rocking your wallet and is killing your savings. It's more expensive to buy groceries, gas. It's more expensive to buy everything. And the economic policies that got us into this mess, Andy Beshear has doubled down on them by endorsing Joe Biden. What I believe is that we need to give you more of your money into your pocket. We need to eliminate Kentucky's income tax. I will be the only candidate on this stage tonight that will say we will eliminate Kentucky's income tax to give you more of your hard money into your pockets.
Governor Beshear, your response.
We are coming off our two best years for economic development in our history. This administration set a record $27.5 billion new dollars invested in us, invested in Kentucky. Look at our national rankings. Number 2 in per capita economic development. Number 3 in the creation of rural jobs. We're building the 2 biggest battery plants on planet Earth. We're home to the biggest investments in the history of Ford and Amazon. We are getting picked time and time again for the biggest projects ever. We set the lowest annual unemployment rate ever last year, the lowest monthly unemployment rate ever about 5 months ago, the longest period of low unemployment we have ever seen. But don't take my word for it. The toughest critics out there are the bond rating agencies, even Fortune 100 companies. Look at those as the experts. We've received upgrades from 2 and an economic upgrade from 3. They all say we're booming more than other states. We got to keep this going. We are winning.
Is there further response?
Well, yeah, look, the expert is the folks that are watching at home. And you know more than anyone else that your savings have been attacked, that your purchasing power is not as good as it was nearly 4 years ago. It's under the leadership of Andy Beshear and the president that he has endorsed, Joe Biden, that inflation is rocking our people. And when he had the opportunity to provide tax relief by vetoing, giving you tax cuts, he vetoed the tax cuts. You need a governor who wants to eliminate Kentucky's income tax. That'll be me.
Further response, Governor?
Well, Bill, that's not accurate. We have built an economy that is generating so much revenue that we can afford raises for our public educators. We can afford major infrastructure projects, but it's also allowed me to sign a bill cutting the income tax. I have lowered the property tax rate 3 straight times. I froze the gas tax when time was tough. I froze the motor vehicle tax when time was tough. What I won't do is recklessly cut income tax in a short period of time and decimate our economy like they did in Kansas. That is the Cameron plan.
All right, let's move. We want to talk about the state income tax, and the Republican-led legislature wants to eliminate the state income tax. Has included more services under the sales tax in order to offset that. And the legislature has adopted what it considers to be a very careful approach, where there are some triggers that have to be hit for the next reduction to happen. That apparently has not been hit this year. Attorney General Cameron seems to have suggested speeding up the process of eliminating the state income tax tax. Governor Beshear vetoed the original bill on income tax, but then signed one of the reductions. So how do we move forward at this point on the future of the state income tax? Governor Beshear.
We do it carefully by looking at our revenues each and every year. What my opponent has proposed, promising in 4 years to eliminate an income tax, would cut about $5 billion of revenue. When Kansas did it, it halted their economic growth. They had to stop all their infrastructure projects. They gutted public education and health care. My opponent says that things cost too much with inflation. Well, what he's going to do is increase sales tax on everything and then apply it to groceries and medicine. Otherwise, he's going to gut public safety, he's going to gut health care, and he's going to gut public education. You simply can't afford the investments in those with his plan. That first income tax bill I got wasn't a cut. It raised sales tax on things like conventions and background checks that keep kids safe. The second one didn't include any sales tax increases, and I could look at revenue year over year and know that we could afford it based on this economy. I do want to continue to make those cuts, but we've got to do it wisely and carefully, not rashly.
General Cameron.
Look, the folks at home just heard the governor say he gauges how well the economy is doing is by how much money the government is taking in. He said the revenue that government's taking in. You at home gauge how the economy is doing by how much money you have in your wallet and in your savings account. And that's why I want to give more of it back to you. Look, at the end of the day, there's a philosophical difference here. I believe that you should have more of your hard-earned money in your pocket. Andy Beshear believes, and you just heard him say, he wants more revenue to the government. And I didn't say anything about raising any sales taxes. The governor keeps talking about this, but the fact of the matter is my plan is to eliminate Kentucky's income tax. I'm going to do it smart and thoughtfully, along with the members of our legislature. I appreciate Chairman McDaniel and Jason Petrie and others in our General Assembly. And here's the best part of that, is that I have a relationship with our General Assembly to get these big things done for this Commonwealth of Kentucky. At the end of the day, this is a philosophical difference. The governor believes that the government should have more of your money. I want you to have more of your money.
Do you want to speed up the elimination of the state income tax? This plan that is in place by the state legislature would take many years, it appears. And if we continue to miss those targets, it could take a considerable time.
Well, Bill, look, the folks at home, there's already an additional tax on you at home. It's called inflation, and it's called Bidenomics in D.C., but we just call it 40-year high record inflation. And for the life of me, I can't understand why Andy Beshear would endorse a president who has got us into this mess.
Bill,
those economic policies have absolutely rocked your wallet. At the end of the day, I'm going to eliminate Kentucky's income tax, and I'm going to do it in a thoughtful and responsible manner. But you will never hear Andy Beshear. You can ask him right now, will he eliminate Kentucky's income tax? He will never say yes to that.
Would you speed up the time frame?
I'll do it in a thoughtful manner, along with the members of our legislature, to make sure that we eliminate Kentucky's income tax.
Bill, this is our sixth debate, and what we've seen over and over is this candidate refuses to answer the questions. He refuses to answer whether he believes there should be an exception for rape and incest under the state's abortion law. He refuses to say whether he is for or against vouchers, and you just asked him a simple question. Will he speed it up? And he still won't answer. You deserve a governor, folks, that will look at you.
Bill, you just heard me say I'm going to do it in a responsible and thoughtful manner. The governor here is out here again, television.
Are you going to speed it up?
Responsible and thoughtful manner. You heard me just say that. The governor, again, has no answers to the inflation and has no answers to the fact that he endorsed Joe Biden. Again, if he wants to say that he regrets endorsing Joe Biden and the inflationary policies that have come along with that, then I would be happy to hear that. I think a lot of Kentuckians who don't have the money in their wallet and don't have the savings in their savings account would be happy to hear this governor say that he regrets endorsing
Bill,
Joe Biden.
The question was, will you speed something up? And his answer was Joe Biden.
And I said responsible and thoughtful manner. Bill, the folks at home know I said a responsible and thoughtful manner.
All right, workforce issues, clearly a concern here in the Commonwealth. There are shortages in nursing and teaching and law enforcement, retail, restaurants, just to name a few. Child care, often mentioned as one major barrier for many. Federal COVID-era subsidies are running out. How much responsibility does the state have in the area of child care? We begin this time with General Cameron.
Well, look, there are so many parents right now, and we've seen because of the inflationary pressures that are coming to us, we've seen the cost of childcare rise. And I know there are a lot of parents that are struggling with that right now. And part of the challenge that we have is the onus and responsibility needs to be on Andy Beshear, who shut down childcare centers all across this state. And again, last night you heard a governor say that he had no regrets for the closures that he instituted during the past couple of years. Again, that's not a governor that's looking out for our people, and that's certainly not a governor that is standing up for our child care centers and our parents that need to get our kids into those centers. I'm going to be a governor that works alongside our legislature to expand our child care services and look for other ways in which we can establish a culture of life here in Kentucky to make sure our kids are getting off on the right foot so that they can be the best version of themselves.
Governor Beshear, your response.
Well, Bill, Kentuckians deserve a governor that will answer questions, not resort to attacks, and talk about a plan on how to address the issues. We look right now at workforce, and the very first thing that we can do is universal pre-K for all 4-year-olds. When they did it in Washington, D.C., it got people back into the workforce quickly. It is the fastest way that we can save our parents about $18,000. We can have every child kindergarten ready, but we can directly impact that workforce. The second thing we can do to help our workforce is to continue our program where we try to get every single graduating senior from a Kentucky high school, either in higher ed with the dollars they need or already in a job before they graduate. Let's not lose one. And then look at what we're doing with our community and technical colleges. Our Education First Employer program has opened the doors and said, come on, employers, bring your curriculum. Because instead of just graduating people with degrees, we're going to create that direct pipeline to you. Those are plans. They're tangible. It's how we address a problem and not just blame it on someone else.
Further response, General Cameron?
Of course. Folks at home, you would think that Andy Beshear has not been the governor for the last 3.5 years. The fact of the matter, there are 22,000 fewer Kentuckians working under his watch. We have the lowest workforce participation rate that we've had in this country's or Commonwealth's history. That is under this governor. But yet tonight he unveils programs and policies, but he's had 4 years to get something done on this front. You need a governor who's going to lean into this issue, and that is what I'll do as the next governor. I'm going to make sure that able-bodied participants get to work. This governor will never say that because he's beholden to the far left, and he cannot speak out and say that able-bodied people, we need to get you back into our workforce.
All right, Governor Beshear.
Bill, every program I mentioned is already in effect, or I've put in one of my budgets.
Why aren't they working, Governor?
But once again, zero plan from my opponent, and instead just attacks. You deserve somebody that is running for something and not just against someone. That'll talk about the ideas and the ways that we get things done. My opponent only sees in Team Red or Team Blue. This is about Team Kentucky. An overly partisan governor will always look to play the blame game or to attack. We've got to get things done. That's what being a governor is all about.
Bill, if I may.
I'll give you a second. Go ahead.
Well, I just asked the folks at home, if these programs exist, then why aren't they working? We obviously need a new governor that can instill some policies and programs in place to get folks working. I've already said, if you're at home and not working, able-bodied individuals need to get back into the workforce. I've talked to so many employers that need folks to come and work in their facilities. And part of the way in which we do that is to encourage able-bodied people to get home. I will be the workforce governor. Andy Beshear has been the welfare governor.
You have further on this, Governor, or we'll move on.
Once again, all attacks, no plan. Do you want an overly partisan governor that will just look to play the national politics game tonight? He's trying to convince you that this is the race for the presidency and not for the governor of Kentucky. Listen, we are working with our employers every day. That was a major sea change, the Education First Employer program. It's already launched. Our Everybody Counts program, we piloted in JCPS and now I think is in 9 different districts. We're actually getting up every day, trying to make things happen. And again, not simply attack somebody. You deserve better than that.
He's had 4 years and the workforce participation rate has got worse.
Good discussion on the economy. Let's move to some education issues. In 1989, the Kentucky Supreme Court struck down the state system of local schools because the disparity between the money spent in rich and poor districts was considered too wide. A child's zip code was determining the quality of their education, and that led to the Kentucky Education Reform Act in 1990. Well, there's a new analysis suggesting suggesting that there is again a major gap between rich and poor districts and what is being spent per pupil in the present day dollars, and it's wider now than it was then. Does that order, that court order of 34 years ago, still hold, and does the state need to address the disparities? Governor Beshear.
Well, I'm a proud product of Kentucky's public schools. In fact, Fayette County public education. I owe my teachers so much. I would not be where I am today or who I am today without so many people having invested in what was then a shy kid. We have to invest more in our system of public education. My last budget was the best budget for public education in a long time, but we have to do more. Our teacher shortage is a crisis across the state. That's why my plan is an 11% across the board raise for every public school employee. But the biggest threat to our public education system are vouchers. My opponent supports vouchers, which would take money from public schools and send them to fancy private schools, tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars sucked out of a system that already has such challenges. And he's refused 10 times to look into a camera and say he's for vouchers, even though in a spectrum debate in the primary, he looked right at the camera and said, yes, he was.
General Cameron, your response?
Look, Andy Beshear can throw a tantrum about vouchers tonight, but my plan, the Cameron catch-up plan, is about our public education system. And you're going to hear the governor in his rebuttal talk more about vouchers. But you, the parent tonight, I want you to know that in the Cameron catch-up plan, we're going to catch your kids up on the disastrous decision that Andy Beshear made to shut down our schools for nearly 2 years. And because of it, test scores have dropped. Your kids, nearly 50% of them can't read at grade level. Only about 29% of them can do science and math at grade level. But this governor, again, is going to simply talk about vouchers. I want to talk about empowering our teachers to remove disruptions from the classroom. I want to make sure that we pay our teachers. Look, I'm married to a school teacher. My sister-in-law is a school teacher. My mother retired as a public educator. I grew up in the Hardin County school system. I want to make sure that we have a world-class education system, one that is about reading, writing, and math, and isn't an incubator for liberal and progressive ideas. At the end of the day, we can make sure that this Commonwealth has a world-class education system, and I'm ready to lead on that.
Bill, if you're for public education, you don't have plans and positions that would dramatically defund it. Now there have been 11 chances
There he goes
for this attorney general to come clean about the fact that he supports vouchers. So here, Spectrum News Republican debate at the Henry Clay in Louisville on March 7th, 2023. He answered it then. The host said, do you support charter schools and also private school vouchers? Yes or no? Daniel Cameron, yes. Folks, he will defund your public schools. None of us are fooled. He's trying to send that money to fancy private schools and corporations.
If you're a parent at home right now, you didn't hear the governor at all address the learning loss, because this governor has no regrets from the fact that he shut down our schools. Not only did he shut down our schools, he shut down your small businesses, he shut down your churches. Again, the product is our kids are falling behind. And I've got a plan that addresses our public schools, our public education system, to catch our kids up. It's modeled after things that we've seen in Tennessee, Utah, and Arizona. We can bring that here. It's a 16-week program to catch our kids up.
His plan is to defund them.
Gentlemen, respectfully, I'm not sure I heard an answer as to whether the state of Kentucky needs to make some major investment in public education once again.
Absolutely.
To make these four districts whole, which cannot get enough money from the property tax.
Let me answer it directly. Yes, we need to invest significantly more in public education. My budgets would have been the largest investments, we believe, in history, cut a little by the General Assembly. But if you're for vouchers, you're not going to get that funding. You're going to take it out of schools. Just be honest.
There he goes, Robot Andy, talking about vouchers again. Again, I'm talking about public education. I'm talking about making sure that we catch your kids up. And the governor can talk about raises. He offered a $2,000 raise. He's offered a 5% raise. He's offered a now 11% raise. And the commonality there is that you haven't gotten any of them, because he has no relationships with the legislature. In fact, the Cameron catch-up plan, I've already gotten buy-in from the legislature. So if you're a parent at home right now that is concerned about the learning loss of your child, know that next year help is coming through the Cameron catch-up plan.
All right, let's continue on education. The Kentucky Board of Education is right now in the process of hiring a new commissioner. And that position was created out of the CARA, the Kentucky Education Reform Act in 1990, with the idea of insulating the person who leads our schools from politics. But in recent years, governors of both parties have reorganized boards, and the legislature has put in a confirmation process for commissioners, making them answerable to them. Is it important in your view that education commissioners have some arm's length from raw politics? General Cameron.
Well, look, the reason that our legislature had to implement a confirmation process is because this governor was breaking the law. He, for the first time in this state's history, blew up the Board of Education. And then you're supposed to put Republicans and Democrats on that board. He just put Democrats on that board. And when he did so, they gave us a commissioner at the Kentucky Department of Education who went before our General Assembly. And if you're a teacher right now, you know this story. Jason Glass went before the General Assembly, and when he was asked if any teacher, if they expressed any reservations about the gender ideology curriculum, what words of comfort did he have for them? Jason Glass's response is that they should find a different job. Andy Beshear's handpicked commissioner at the Kentucky Department of Education told hardworking teachers that they should find another job. This is in the midst of a teacher shortage. By May of next year, the next governor will have the opportunity to appoint 9 of the 11 members. You need a governor who's going to appoint members that know that our schools are going to be about reading, writing, and math. That'll be me. And we'll make sure to have a commissioner that is focused on that as well.
Time's up, Governor Beshear. Your response?
Well, I believe the question was, should the commissioner of education be independent and be separated from politics? And the answer is absolutely. We have seen so much politics being played in our public schools. My opponent accusing teachers of doing things in the classroom that they are not doing. Our last commissioner was picked by a board. I had never met him in an independent process through a national search. Those are the ways that we are supposed to select commissioners and try to get the very best. I did replace the members of the Board of Education because the last board was supporting private school vouchers, was supporting charter schools, was trying to go in an unconstitutional way and take your tax dollars away from public schools and send them to private schools. That's exactly what my opponent supports. Again, he just won't look in the camera and say to you that he supports vouchers and charter schools that'll take public dollars and send them to private education.
Rather than a rebuttal on this, let me go on because I have a question on
we do
this
have
issue.
to. This governor broke the law. He just appointed Democrats, so it was a partisan pick. Democrats handpicked Jason Glass. Andy Beshear handpicked those Democrat members to the Board of Education, and then they gave us Jason Glass. So it was a partisan pick. He appointed no Republicans. He only appointed Republicans to that board after the Courier-Journal and the Herald-Leader called him out on it, and then they decided to appoint some Republicans.
Bill, the law said that you have to make those appointments without regard to party. We didn't look at anyone's party because that's what the law said. And if you read the law,
but he knows that you're supposed to appoint Republicans and Democrats. Governor, you know you're supposed to.
The law when we appointed that new board said you could not consider political party. That was the law.
There's this big debate about choice, and we've had some of that here. But let's talk about it. Advocates say that no child should be trapped in a failing school. Opponents say if public money is directed to private schools, it takes resources away from public schools, as has been said here tonight. What is the priority for you in this choice debate, Governor?
I am against anything that will take our public tax dollars from our public schools and send them to private schools. The answer is to better fund our public schools. Right now, some of our schools are failing because we don't pay our educators and our mental health counselors and our bus drivers enough to have enough. The way we address this teacher shortage is to pay people closer to what they're worth. I know so many teachers that are hanging on, having to work a second job when we tell them that this is a noble profession. Our 11% across the board raise will make sure not only that we have enough teachers, but bus drivers, counselors, cafeteria workers, and others. The answer is to lift our public schools up and not to tear them down. And that's part of the founding under our current Constitution, which says very clearly that you cannot divert public dollars. But this Attorney General stands with legislators that have already proposed a constitutional amendment to try to take those dollars away.
General Cameron?
Well, look, my plan, the Cameron catch-up plan, is about our public schools. And the governor is talking about his education policies and these raises. But just in that answer, you heard the governor throw the legislature under the bus. And if you are a parent at home, or even if you're a teacher, or if you're a student watching tonight, you've got to think to yourself, if a governor is willing to throw the legislature under the bus in a comment related to education, how then is he going to be in a position to pass legislation to help our teachers and our students and our families? The answer is he won't, because he does not have the relationships to get anything done. Again, when he unveiled his education plan, the education chair of the House Education Committee said that the governor hadn't reached out to him to even talk about the plan. When I unveiled my education plan, I did it in a responsible manner. I talked to the members of our legislature, and guess what? I've already got the buy-in from them to get the Cameron catch-up plan passed.
Bill, your question was whether or not he supported school choice, the vouchers, and the charter
I think
schools,
we need
and
to
he did not answer it.
I think we need to expand opportunity and choice. But let me say this, the governor is fixated on vouchers. We know how much he dislikes private schools. But at the end of the day, my plan, and I'll say maybe his plan as well, is just about public education. But you need a governor that not only talks about these things, but is willing to do the hard work of communicating with our legislature to get them done for you.
Very quick, Governor.
So the question was about school choice. Again, a refusal to answer. You deserve a governor that looks at you and answers the question. It doesn't try to interrupt because he knows what I'm saying.
Well, you deserve a governor that's going to catch your kids up from disastrous decisions that this governor made.
We're sharing rebuttal time now, so let's move on. The AARP shared this question with us, and the numbers are pretty astounding. We have an aging population, and Kentucky has more than 600,000 caregivers out there who are providing 570 million hours of unpaid family care. Are there steps that you would propose to provide some support for caregivers? Paid leave or tax credits are among the things that have been proposed. General Cameron.
Well, look, I've seen just how many grandparents and kin are helping our children, especially in circumstances where their parents have found themselves addicted to opioids or other substances. And so I, again, think we need to be in the responsible position of looking for ways in which to expand opportunities to help provide resources to grandparents or others who are in kinship care. I think that's a responsible thing to do, to keep families together, to keep kids with family members. And certainly we need to make sure that happens, because right now under this governor, under the foster care system, you got kids that are sleeping on floors of dilapidated buildings. I'd rather have a child with a grandparent or next of kin than in that situation. So I fully support making sure that we have kinship resources available. I've done some work as it relates to the opioid epidemic and bringing millions of dollars into the state to fight that and to help with this issue as well.
Governor Beshear, your response?
Well, Bill, AARP's question is about caring for our seniors specifically. And yes, we do have an aging population. You see it in the workforce numbers because the boomers are retiring. They are the biggest generation in the history of planet Earth. And as they retire, we need more resources out there. As Attorney General, I started the first senior protection office that office had ever seen. As governor, I ended the wait list for senior meals. We finally got the PACE program up and running that provides health care so seniors can stay in their homes. We're opening the first new veterans nursing home in a long time, and I worked with our long-term care groups to increase their reimbursements to make sure there were places for people when they need it. But yes, we need to always be looking out for our seniors. They built this state and this country that we call home. Our opportunities we owe to them. I will continue to work as your governor for every next program that can help you in your life as you age.
All right. Abortion has been getting a lot of attention in this campaign, and Kentucky has a near total abortion ban that includes no exceptions for cases of rape or incest. A proposal for exceptions got nowhere in the recent meeting of the Kentucky General Assembly. Would you press the legislature to amend the state law to create those limited exceptions? Governor Beshear.
Absolutely. Kentucky has the most restrictive, draconian law anywhere in the country. It removes options for even victims of rape and incest, some as young as 9 years old. You've seen the commercial with Hadley, abused by one of her family members, finding herself pregnant. No child should ever have to carry the child of her rapist. Those that are not for exceptions for rape and incest, like my opponent, believe that a rapist should have more rights than their victim. When I was Attorney General, I always stood for the victim. These were the individuals we worked for and with. We created a survivors council so we could hear directly from them, because I'll never be able to feel their trauma. But I can listen, I can empathize, and then I can try to do the hard work of serving them. I will press every day to get exceptions for rape and incest, because those that have been harmed and violated absolutely deserve those options.
General Cameron.
Well, I've said repeatedly that if those exceptions were brought to my desk, I would sign them. Now, the governor in rebuttal will sort of make, he'll want to talk some more about this, but I've said that if those exceptions, but at the end of the day, we need to keep in mind that every baby is an image bearer of God. And I think that we need to establish here in Kentucky a culture of life. And that is the difference between the governor and I. I want to see more lives born, and this governor wants to see more abortions. I think you need to have a governor that is fighting every day to have fewer abortions. And his second largest campaign donor is Planned Parenthood. And Planned Parenthood has made money in a business model off of destroying black communities. In fact, 79% of their facilities are in non-white communities. I am Planned Parenthood's worst nightmare. That's why Andy Beshear is doing their bidding. Margaret Sanger wanted to destroy the black community. Planned Parenthood wants to destroy the black community. And Andy Beshear is doing their bidding right now.
I've always been for reasonable restrictions on abortion, especially late-term procedures. But my opponent has now had 11 different chances to look at a camera and to tell you whether he is personally for exceptions for rape and incest. I'll show you how. I am personally for exceptions for rape and incest. Those individuals deserve options. And he must be talking about contributions to an independent expenditure, but his biggest contributor to those is for school choice and vouchers. And oh yes, owns part of a company Daniel Cameron's trying to send $40 million of opioid money to. That's a pretty good return on investment, I guess.
Further response, General Cameron.
Look, what I will say is that I've already said repeatedly that if those exceptions made it to my desk, I would sign them. But this governor, again, is backed by an organization that wanted, through its founder, to destroy black communities. And I'm Planned Parenthood's worst nightmare. Let me just say, this governor can spare us his righteous indignation, because when he was in private practice, when sex abuse allegations were made against the Boy Scouts of America, guess who was defending the Boy Scouts of America? Andy Beshear. So much so that he got those cases dismissed.
Just to be clear, you would just await the decision of the General Assembly on that matter.
Let me talk. I'm sorry, say that again.
You would await the General Assembly's judgment on the matter.
I would sign those exceptions if they came. But let me also say that this is a governor. He talks about late-term restrictions, but he never says what that means. Andy Beshear wants no limits on abortions because his record demonstrates that. He had a chance to sign a 15-week ban on abortion. He vetoed that. He had a chance to sign legislation to protect a baby after it was born alive. He vetoed that. He's told taxpayers he wants them to pay for abortions. Andy Beshear has never said what his limit is on abortion. Nobody ever asked him that. Governor, what is your limit on abortion? No, there's no limit on abortion. I'll answer for him. He paused.
Are you afraid for me to answer?
You paused.
Bill, right now, the law in Kentucky is zero. No options whatsoever.
Bill, he's not
Parents
answering.
right now
Bill, he's not answering.
Are having a non-viable pregnancy are forced to carry that baby. One couple whose baby was going to be born without a brain because of the law that he supports. But this was time number 12, Bill.
Bill, you said you were for some exceptions.
Bill, he will not answer.
Since I ran for Attorney General, I've always been public that I support reasonable restrictions, especially on late-term procedures.
What does late-term mean?
Those were set during Roe v. Wade by the courts, and there were significant restrictions.
Bill, you got to ask him, what does late-term mean? Because
you're asking, is there an answer to that, Governor?
Yes, under Roe v. Wade, there were significant restrictions that were set.
What does that mean,
by
Governor?
the courts, and
what does that mean?
They got it right.
What does that mean?
There were lots of restrictions, especially
Is that 15 weeks? Is that 20 weeks?
procedures.
Is that 30 weeks?
The reality right now is Kentucky's law
no
is
answer.
0 weeks.
This
and that's
governor
what
has
he
no answer
supports.
for you.
All right,
He has no answer.
We're
No
moving on.
limits.
Nearly 19,000 Kentuckians lost their lives to COVID-19 during the pandemic. There has been, of course, a lot of back and forth in this campaign between these candidates about the measures taken to try to slow the spread. Did we learn lessons about what worked and what didn't? What could have been done differently in those early pre-vaccine days? General Cameron.
We learned a lot of things. We learned this governor is willing to infringe upon your constitutional rights. He's willing to send state troopers to our churches to record license plates. He's willing to tell you to, if you left the state and came back, you had to quarantine for a period of 14 days. All these things were unconstitutional. He's willing to shut your schools down. And our kids have extreme learning loss because of it. He's willing to shut our small businesses down. Some of them have never recovered. He shut down child care centers. We now have some of the backlogs and issues there. He told chiropractors, we were the only state in the nation that shut down our chiropractors. And the interesting thing about all this, Gavin Newsom just a couple of weeks ago said that he had regrets about what he did in shutting his state down. Andy Beshear has never said that he has any regrets in shutting down your businesses, infringing upon your constitutional rights, shutting down your churches, releasing 2,000 criminals back into our streets to prey on our families. He has never shared any regrets because he's too proud. And to say that he is sorry is to hold him accountable for those disastrous decisions that he made.
Governor Beshear, your response.
Folks, this question is about leadership and about who you trust in the toughest of times to make decisions based on life and death and not based on politics. We lost 19,000 people in the pandemic. My opponent acts like it's not real, but we lost more than we lost in World War I, World War II, Vietnam, and Korea put together. I know, because for a year and a half, I stood in front of you every day, and I read off the age and the location of every individual we lost. We would have lost more, but for our hard-working healthcare heroes in the way, he acts like it wasn't real as a slap in the face of people who walked into a COVID wing when we didn't have sufficient PPE. We all made sacrifices. We did it together because we knew that there are so many kids out there being raised by a grandparent, older, with health issues, and if they had brought that home, that one person that loves and cares about them wouldn't be here today. I will always put what I believe is best for the people of Kentucky over my own self-interest or over any number of votes.
Further response?
Yeah, so the governor just told you he didn't learn any lessons. Again, Gavin Newsom just 2 weeks ago said he had regrets over the decisions that he made during that period of time. But Andy Beshear won't say it because he's too proud. But he infringed upon your constitutional rights. Look, when Joe Biden tried to force vaccine mandates on our state, I went into federal court and got those vaccine mandates stopped. But you didn't hear a peep from this governor because he's beholden to the far left of his party, and he's beholden to Joe Biden, who he just openly endorsed. We don't need that sort of leadership here in this Commonwealth of Kentucky. While red state governors were trying to find ways to keep their businesses open and return things to a normal standard, this governor was trying to find ways to keep us shut down.
This is what happens when you only see the world in red or blue, Team R or Team D, because all of our initial steps, and Bill, the question was about early on, were steps that were suggested by the Trump administration. Listen, we did the best we could with the battlefield decisions that we had to make. If I go back in time and I knew the pandemic was coming ahead of time, I would have worked hard to get those cuts to unemployment that Matt Bevin and the General Assembly had made filled. I would have worked to reopen all of the rural offices that they had closed in those years before.
All right, in 2018, and we all, by the way, attended the SOAR summit in Corbin, where this was some discussion. In 2018, Congress passed the SUPPORT Act, and that funneled $20 billion into drug treatment and prevention, and Kentucky got some share of that. But the problem has gotten worse nationwide. That act expired on September 30th, and there's little push to do more at the federal level. We have seen some encouraging numbers in Kentucky, but we continue to lose about 2,000 Kentuckians a year to overdose, like losing a small town. Should we or can we redouble our efforts at the state level with the federal effort apparently fading? Governor Beshear.
Yeah, the opioid epidemic is a challenge of our lifetimes. We have lost so many of our families and friends, and we have a responsibility to end an epidemic that arose in our lifetime and not leave it to our kids. Listen, we won't get anywhere by blaming this party or that party. Let's put the blame where it belongs, on the opioid manufacturers and distributors that sent thousands of pills for every man, woman, and child into small communities. I sued more of them than any other AG in the country, and I personally went to court when they flew in their big city lawyers and tried to say it was all our fault. And I kept every single one of them in court so that we could ultimately bring some dollars home to help our people. Since I've become governor, we've increased treatment beds by 50%. We have more recovery programs out there than ever before. We're doing more in our jails and prisons to get people better and get them in a job. And because of both law enforcement, because of treatment, and because of recovery, we were one of only 8 states in the entire country that had a significant decrease in overdose deaths last year. I'm grateful to all the people that work in all 3 of those areas.
General Cameron.
Well, the opioid and drug epidemic has plagued our people for far too long. And we've seen so many families broken up by it and devastated by it. And whether it's me or the governor or anyone, our heart breaks for those families that have been hurt by this epidemic. I'm proud to be the Attorney General that's in the process of bringing nearly $900 million into the state to fight this epidemic. And I've had the great pleasure and honor of working alongside county and Commonwealth's attorneys and mayors and county judges who I know are receiving some of that money now. And I'm glad that that's happening. And look, this money is not an end-all be-all. It's not a magic elixir. It's not a magic wand that we can just wave to end this. But it is a significant down payment in addressing an affliction that has plagued our people for far too long. And I'm proud of all the folks that have been working together to bring this money into the state.
Voters tell us that they are concerned about crime, and some crime rates have been dropping, but violence remains an issue in many parts of the state, and some police departments are struggling to find officers to keep folks safe. In fact, Lexington is more than 100 officers short. Kentucky State Police struggling to fill open positions. Some school campuses are still without resource officers. Kids, it seems, who grow up wanting to become police officers early on tend to become college students who see law enforcement as thankless. Is there a way to address that as a state? General Cameron.
Well, look, let me just say I'm so grateful for our law enforcement community and the job that you do day in and day out to protect our families. You know, you wear that badge and don that uniform, knowing that the dangers that exist out there, but yet you still go to the job and you sacrifice. And to the spouses and significant others and family members that watch their loved one go off, thank you as well. Look, you need a governor that is going to say unabashedly that I stand with the law enforcement community. And I'm so honored to be the candidate in this race who is endorsed by the Kentucky Fraternal Order of Police. Andy Beshear was endorsed by them in 2019, but they've endorsed my candidacy this year because they know that I'm going to stand with them not only in word but also in action. I've put forward a robust public safety plan to improve morale by having retention and recruitment bonuses, by making sure that Kentucky has a standalone carjacking statute, by putting a Kentucky State Police posts in Louisville to address the violent crime issue there as well. So I'm going to work very closely with our law enforcement community to make sure you have the resources you need so that we can keep our streets safe from crime and drugs.
All right, Governor Beshear, your response.
Everybody deserves to feel safe in their home and in their community. And while most crime numbers are down, people don't feel safer, so we have to do more. And the reason that we've been losing law enforcement officers over the years were cuts to pensions. And we saw a significant loss when Matt Bevin tried to illegally cut the pensions of all of our law enforcement. I took that to court. We got it overturned, and thankfully those retirements are still there. My opponent says he would have defended that bill, defended those illegal cuts. The first thing we got got to do is get more law enforcement on the street. That's why I fought for and got the largest raise for the Kentucky State Police, we believe, ever. That $15,000 raise now has us at the largest number of troopers in years. We just had the largest class that we've had in years, and we have the largest number of applications. I've successfully increased the CLEP fund. That's the training stipend that helps local police officers and sheriff deputies. I proposed a $20 million body armor fund, and I've sent our National Guard to the border under both President Trump and President Biden because I believe that border security is national security and should not be politicized.
Rebuttal.
Yeah, the governor said you don't feel safe. Well, the reason you don't feel safe is because this governor let out of jail 2,000 criminals. And until a couple of days ago, I was saying only a third of them had recommitted felony offenses. Well, it turns out I was wrong. Over 50% of them have recommitted felony offenses, making our communities less safe and law enforcement's job more difficult. And it's the main reason that the Kentucky Fraternal Order of Police have endorsed me, because they trust me to look out for our law enforcement community and make sure that we keep our streets safe from the crime and drugs that we've seen.
Quick response.
Yeah, the Attorney General's misleading you. He knows in those numbers that those vast majority of people, if they recommitted crimes, it was after they'd already been out. In fact, one of his allies ran an ad about someone who never got out at all. But I run towards problems, not away from them. This Attorney General tries to blame all crime on me. He is the top cop. And while he wants a KSP post in Louisville, there is an Attorney General's office in Louisville with investigators and lawyers, yet the mayor of Louisville tells me he is the only official that hasn't called and offered to help.
This can be a quick answer if you choose. Do you support restoring voting rights to people with past felony convictions once they have completed their sentence, Governor Beshear?
I was proud on the third day that I became governor to sign an executive order that automatically restores voting rights to nonviolent and non-sex offender felons. What that means is that those individuals who have paid their dues, they have served their time, but they haven't inflicted lasting trauma on individuals, have the opportunity to join our great society again. It's now 190,000 Kentuckians that have the right to vote that previously didn't. I do believe that we ought to have a constitutional amendment that puts that into the Constitution, that ensures that it lasts longer than me. You know, Matt Bevin rescinded a similar order from my dad, and this Attorney General has not committed to keep that executive order in place. What that could mean for hundreds of thousands of Kentuckians is to lose access to the polls after they have completed their sentence.
General Cameron?
Look, I don't have any problem with restoring a person's voting rights under the same rubric that they, it's not a sex offense or a violent offense. And so, look, I think the governor and I can agree on this. But let me circle back to the issue of crime. I mean, this governor is again passing the buck. I mean, it's indisputable that he let 2,000 criminals out of jail, and 50% of them have recommitted felony offenses. And there's no reason or no wonder why the Kentucky State Fraternal Order of Police endorsed this campaign, because you can't trust Andy Beshear. Frankfurt, or TV Andy, will tell you that he supports our law enforcement community and wants to keep our community safe. But then Frankfurt Andy is writing commutations in Frankfurt, releasing criminals from jail. And then they are preying on your communities. You need leadership in Frankfurt that is going to stand up for you and keep our community safe.
Bill, when we made the commutations, COVID was raging through our prisons and jails. We lost 8 corrections officers. 8. I guess my opponent would have stood there and allowed more state employees to die. They were leaving their families every day to keep us safe, going into a place where we knew they were going to contract that virus. So what did I do? I did what President Trump did, and 20 other governors, both Democrat and Republican, including the head of the Republican Governors Association that's running these commercials. This wasn't about red or blue. It was about life versus death. And so to every corrections officer out there, yes, I knew I'd get hit on this politically, but I value your life more than a number of votes.
I've spent a lot of time with Kentucky's jailers, and I don't know one that supports Andy Beshear. The jailers want a governor who's about law and order. They don't want a catch and release governor. And that's what Andy Beshear has been over the course of these last 4 years. Violent crime has increased in our largest cities. There's a 68% increase in violent crime in rural areas, 30% increase statewide. Bottom line is, under this governor, violent crime has gotten worse. He's got no answer or solution for it. In fact, what you've heard from him is somebody that's a follower, not a leader. In fact, when I unveiled my public safety plan, he unveiled his a few weeks later.
5 seconds, Bill.
Go.
I'm running toward this problem. I'm working to get better pay for state police and others. My opponent, the top cop, takes no responsibility.
We have all seen the dysfunction in Washington with the U.S. House going so far 3 weeks or so without a speaker, leaving that chamber unable to function for the people. We see national-style politics creeping into state and even local elections. And we also see younger voters registering independent in large numbers. They don't want any part of the partisanship. Is it important to keep Washington-style politics out of Frankfurt, or are we just in a time where lack of cooperation and gridlock are part of the landscape? General Cameron?
Well, look, I certainly think that we need to try to unify the state. That's why it's been so disappointing to see a governor who would veto legislation to protect women's sports from biological males. I think most folks that are watching at home right now, if you have a daughter or granddaughter who's competing in her sport, you want to keep it safe from men. But yet this governor won't take that approach. So I think we do need to unify this state, but at the same time, you need to have a governor that's willing to stand up and make the tough decisions and push back against what's coming out of Washington, D.C., whether it's inflation, whether it's Joe Biden's EPA that's trying to destroy our coal industry, whether it's Joe Biden who wanted to force vaccine mandates on our state. You need a governor that is going to stand up to that. Now, Andy Beshear will say that, we can't worry about what's happening in D.C. We need to worry about what's happening in your house. But the fact of the matter is, inflation is rocking your wallet and your savings in your house. Violent crime is in your neighborhood, and that's what I'm running towards in addressing.
Governor Beshear, response.
You just saw my opponent try to bring that D.C. politics into the answer to that question. We absolutely have to keep D.C. politics and dysfunction out of our state. A governor's got to get things done. I've signed 627 bipartisan bills as governor. We've gotten things done that they said would never happen while I'm governor, like passing medical marijuana, sports betting, $500 million in clean drinking water, money to get high-speed internet to every home across Kentucky, a special session that landed us the biggest investment in our history. That Ford Motor Company, $5.8 billion, 5,000 new job investment. Partisanship, red versus blue, Team R versus Team D is eating up our country. Neighbors yelling at neighbors, and you see their commercials. My opponent's trying to get you to violate that golden rule, to get you angry, to get you to dislike or even hate your neighbor. Folks, there can't be Team Red or Blue. There has to be Team Kentucky. And just listen to the number of times he said the president's name. He wants to confuse you. This is about us. It's about Kentucky and about who will get things done versus who will bring Washington, D.C. into your home even more.
Yeah, I'm not trying to confuse you. I'm just pointing out that this governor endorsed the very policies that have gotten us into the economic mess that we're in now. And that is affecting your home. That's affecting your wallet. That's affecting your savings account. That's affecting your ability to buy groceries and put food on the table. And that's the point that I think is really important. And I know there are a lot of folks at home right now that want leadership that's going to stand up and push back against what we're seeing out of Washington, D.C.
So what my opponent has said is he wants to be governor to fight who's in D.C. I've been a governor to create good jobs for your family, to make sure that we do everything we can for public safety, that's working on 3 impossible infrastructure projects at the same time. The Brent Spence Bridge, 4-laning the Mountain Parkway, and moving I-69 along. I've provided discretionary transportation funding to every county because there aren't red counties or blue counties. There are just Kentucky counties. So you can pick somebody that pledges to fight in Washington, D.C., or someone who's just worked for you every day.
10 seconds.
Look, this is a governor who's living in an alternate reality. Things are not better at your house, and you know that by your savings account and what is in your checking account.
All right. Want to preserve time for our closing remarks, and each candidate will have 1 minute for that, as we have been through a lot of issues here this evening in an interesting time in politics and here in the Commonwealth. The candidates drew for the order of closing remarks, and so we begin with a closing statement from Attorney General Cameron.
Well, thank you, Bill. You've heard the governor tonight tell you how well the economy is doing, but chances are you don't feel that way because inflation is rocking your wallet. Now, where the governor and I have agreed is that this isn't a race about Republican versus Democrat. Where we differ, however, is what it's about. And I think this is a race about crazy versus normal. And I think it's crazy to have a governor who openly endorses Joe Biden, who shut down your churches, who shut down your schools, who shut down your small businesses, who's failed to protect women's sports from biological males, who's vetoed tax cuts. But ladies and gentlemen, we don't have to accept this crazy agenda any longer. We can make sure that we have leadership that makes sure that we have quality schools, that we support our teachers, that we keep our streets safe from crime and drugs. And yes, we can eliminate Kentucky's income tax. That's where you and I can go together if you vote for me on November 7th. I'd love to have your help. We can make this Commonwealth a shining city on a hill, a model and an example for the rest of the nation to follow. Thank you so much.
Governor Beshear, your closing remarks.
You know, we've been through a lot together, Kentucky. We've been through a pandemic, tornadoes, flooding, windstorms, and ice storms, yet here we stand on economic development, the envy of the nation. Ranked number 2 in the entire country in per capita economic development, number 3 in the creation of rural jobs. We brought in more private sector investment, an objective fact, than ever before in our history, created 48,000 new jobs at the second and third highest wages we've ever seen. An overly partisan governor will stop all of that. Somebody with rash plans that decimated Kansas's economy will stop all that. Someone who wants to defund your public schools will stop all of that. Folks, we have got to keep this going. And in me, you have a governor that doesn't see Team Red or Team Blue, just Team Kentucky. But if we want to talk about normal versus crazy, it's crazy we have a candidate that doesn't have the empathy to look at a camera and say he supports victims of rape and incest, some as young as 9, to have options. I will always be the type of governor that you might not agree with, but you'll know he's doing what he thinks is right.
Time's up. We do want to thank our partners for tonight's debate. We couldn't do it without them. AARP of Kentucky, the University of Kentucky Student Government, and the League of Women Voters of Kentucky. Certainly thanks to the candidates for taking part, subjecting themselves to my questions and each other tonight, as they have done across the state. And it's been a credit in this campaign to the two of you that you've been willing to do these debates and inform the people. Early in-person voting is Thursday, November 2nd, Friday, November 3rd, and Saturday, November 4th. Election Day, Tuesday, November 7th. The polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. that day. For more information, go to vote.ky.gov. On behalf of WKYT and Gray Television, I'm Bill Bryant. Thank you for watching the Kentucky Debate.